Lord is preaching through me to you, as you may be seated. And every time I preach and teach these texts, these biblical texts, these narratives that are in Scripture, I am fascinated of how God does what he does. I think I'm going to be able to move on. And I wonder why he puts me in a particular text and why I'm looking at it. But then you look even further in the biblical narrative and you discover that God is speaking to us. And when I looked at this particular text, I preached it before. I told them at Salome, I've been preaching 40 years, almost 17 years there, 20 years here. I'm going back now, preaching some of the same texts that I preached before. But because the Bible is a living organism, it continues to grow and expand and to lift up certain truths from it. Every time you read it and preach it, you learn something new. Now, when you look at this particular text, you're going to see Peter. Peter is significant. Peter is important in the life of the early church. One commentator wanted me to tell you where John ends, the book of Acts of the Apostles began. And chapter 21 is really important because you'll never understand Acts chapter 1, 2, and 3 until you read John chapter 21. Because John chapter 21 is the bridge between the two chapters. Because when you see the Gospels, which is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you see the life and the ministry of Jesus Christ. You see that Jesus chose 12 disciples, and these chosen 12 disciples were to continue the work after Jesus had ascended to heaven. And when you read the Gospels, you're going to see at the end of each of these 4 Gospels, Jesus ascending to heaven. And now you're going to see Jesus on his way back to heaven. The 12 disciples remain here on earth. Now, what it looks like when you read the biblical narrative of these 4 Gospels, when you lay them on top of each other, you will conclude this one fact. And the fact is this: all of the disciples deserted Jesus. When you read the biblical narrative, you will discover that, because when you look at this particular biblical narrative and when you read the Gospels, you will discover that the only person standing at the cross was John. You remember who John was. John was the one to whom Jesus committed his mother. He said, "Take care of my mother." All of the other disciples had abandoned Jesus. And particularly, you're going to discover that Peter denied him. And really, when you read the biblical narrative, you will discover Peter was the one who said that he wouldn't deny Jesus. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. The one who said that he would never deny Jesus, he would never leave Jesus, he would never abandon Jesus, was the very one who denied him and abandoned him. And really, I really want to tell you what most commentators say, that Peter failed Jesus because he done a whole lot of talk. When you look at the life of Peter, you will discover Peter was one of them feisty disciples. He was a very vocal disciple. Peter was one of those who was the spokesman for the 12. He was the one who spoke great revelations. He was the one who Jesus had to rebuke. He was the one whom Jesus had to get out of trouble a lot of times. And it was Peter who was almost, if you read the biblical narrative, you will come to the same conclusion that I come to. Peter was definitely the leader of the 12. He was the most outspoken. He was the most visible. His name is mentioned more than any of the other 12 disciples. But he's also the most notable, but he's also the most infamous. In other words, we are introduced to the failures of Peter. And I need to tell you, my brothers and sisters, as a Christian, you're going to have some failures. As a human being, you're going to have some failures. As a parent, you're going to have some failures. As a child, you're going to have some failures. As a husband or wife, you're going to have some failures. You're going to have some failures in life, some setbacks in life. Things are going to happen to you in your life that are just going to cause you to have some setbacks. Now let me tell you this, because this is important. God does not view you when you fail the way people view you. Do I have any witnesses in here? I need to tell you that when you have failure, setbacks, and when you make mistakes in life, people will dismiss you. People will forget about you. People will look over you. People will hold your mistakes and your failures against you. Nobody in here, I don't believe, if you were setting up an organization like Jesus was setting up, if you were setting up a ministry like Jesus was setting his ministry up, if you were to pick 12 disciples, and among the 12 you pick 3, and among the 3 you pick 1 who you really look to for leadership, because Jesus says in Matthew chapter 16, upon this rock I build my church, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And in that statement, he really sets Peter forth as the leader of the 12, and he said that Peter would be very important and pivotal in the early birth and the movement of the church. Now, if you had that much confidence in a person, and you picked that person, and you chose that person, and that person continued to let you down, if that person continued to try to undermine you, if that person continued to fail and struggle, if you had to rebuke that person, if you had to continually get that person out of mess after mess, and you have to deal with failure after failure, you're just like me, you would probably dismiss or fire or get rid of that person. You would not see much use for a person like that. You wouldn't see much use for a person that continued to do a whole lot of talking but didn't do a whole lot of doing. Do I have any witnesses in here? I'm just trying to explain to you the text, because it's really going to be important when you read this particular text, because in my Bible it really talks about, in this particular text, it talks about that Jesus is going to reinstate Peter after Peter had made mistake after mistake, had failure after failure, and he never really lived up to the expectations of Jesus. Jesus said about him one time, flesh and blood didn't reveal this to you, but my Father which is in heaven. But Jesus also said to Peter, Satan is out to get you. He's out to sift you like wheat. But I pray for you that when you are strengthened, you might strengthen your brothers. When God gets you where God is trying to take you, you're going to be a great benefit to others. And I really need to stop parenthetically and tell somebody, you might not be there now, but you're going to get there. God might have you in process. You might not be as strong as you're going to be, but you might be in process. Right now, the devil might be testing you. The devil might be sifting you like wheat. The devil might be putting you through a test. The devil might be straining you to get all the lumps out of you so that he can use you. God can use you in a significant way. It's Peter who I'm talking about. Peter, the one who, in a sense, let Jesus down. And you remember when they were in the upper room, Jesus told them he's about to go, and he said to them, where I'm going, you can't go. You can't go. And Peter said, Lord, tell me where you're going. I'm coming. And Peter started talking that big talk again in the upper room after the Lord's Supper. And Peter said, I'm going. And Jesus says, you ain't going to make it through the night. Before the rooster crows, you're going to deny me 3 times. That's Peter. That's who I'm talking about, the one who did a lot of big talk in front of folk, talked about how much he loved Jesus, how faithful he was to Jesus, and what he would do to Jesus, and that he would never leave Jesus. And Jesus had to check him, and Jesus had to call him out. And then that night, I want to talk about that night. Because if you really talk about that night, you'll see just how and what Peter really is. Because that night he made a whole lot of mistakes. He made a whole lot of mistakes that night. They came down from the upper room. They crossed the Kidron Valley, went into the Garden of Gethsemane. And in the garden, Peter cut off a man's ear. I talked about that last week. And Jesus had to put his hand in Peter's mess to get Peter out of the mess that Peter made in order to save Peter for a future purpose and for his future destiny. And boy, y'all really didn't hear me when I said that last week, because see, you didn't act like it. Because if the truth be told, the Lord done got you out of a whole lot of messes. Ain't it the truth what I'm saying? The Lord done got you out of a whole lot of messes he didn't make. You made the mess. You created the problem. You created the chaos in the lives of other people. And the Lord had to throw you a life jacket in order to keep you from drowning. But not only did he throw you a life jacket, TJ, he had to swim out to get you and bring you back to the shore. And then when he got you back to the shore, he had to perform CPR to bring you back to life. Because you took in a whole lot of water. And ain't it the truth? Some of us can testify that's what the Lord had to do for us. He had to rescue us. He had to bring us back to life. He had to restore that which was almost taken from us to get us to where he was trying to take us. And so that night in the garden, Jesus saved Peter. But Peter's foolishness wasn't over yet. Because when Jesus went to the house of Caiaphas, where they tried Jesus. They tried Jesus in the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. Peter was outside, warming his hands by the fire. He wouldn't go in. He was on the outside. A couple of people recognized Peter. Now remember, in the upper room that night, he says, where you going, I'm going. And I ain't going nowhere, and I'm going to never deny it. And he gets recognized for the first time. And somebody said to Peter, you look like one of Jesus' disciples. Peter said, I don't even know the man. I don't know him. Then somebody else said, no, you look like Jesus. You a Galilean. He's a Galilean. Y'all look alike. You talk alike. And Peter said again, I don't know the man. And then somebody else came and said, I'm absolutely certain I've seen you with Jesus. I know you're one of his disciples. And this time Peter did not quote the Lord's Prayer, but Peter cussed, went off, snapped, and lost it, and said, I don't know the man. Ran off and went in hiding. And everybody thought, if you read the narrative, that it's over for Peter, because he was a disappointment. Disappointment to us because we're reading the narrative. But let me give you some points before I read the text, because I want to explain this to you. Because this is what one commentator wanted me to tell you. That before God decides to use you, listen to me. Let this sink in. Before God decides to use you, he already knows everything about you. Boy, somebody ought to shout. Every time the Lord gets ready to use you, or he decides to use, or when he does use you, he already knows everything about you. Now, Judge Hampton, this is the interesting part. When Jesus was in the upper room talking to Peter, you know what Jesus says? You gonna deny me. Guess what? Before Peter ever done it, Jesus already knew he was gonna do it. I'm just trying to prove to you that the Lord already knew what Peter would do and what Peter wouldn't do. And let me tell you, the Lord already knows all of your weaknesses and your strengths. Ebony, he knows everything about you. Nothing about you is hidden from God. Michael, he knows everything about you. They're going down that road, up that road, in your bedroom, in your gatherings and associations, in your group of friends. He knows everything. And I can go even deeper than that. He knows what's in your heart. The Bible says he knows your thoughts, Brother Schaefer, even before you think them. Before God decides to use you, he knows everything. He knows how many drinks you'll take in a week. He knows what you're going to do Saturday night, what you did last Saturday night. He knows everything. Before God decides to use you, he knows everything. God ain't surprised when you mess up. God ain't surprised when you slip up. God ain't surprised, Sister Nivea, when you slip up. He knows everything. Man, I'm getting scared just thinking about it. Because God knows what I'm going to do next Saturday night, next Friday night, tomorrow night. He already knows. But in knowing all of that, he decides to use me anyway. Now see, you get mad when you start dating a man and then he disappoints you. And then you say to him, you should have told me about this before I fell in love. And if I'd have knew this, it wouldn't have been no us. But see, God knows all and everything, and he loves you anyway. He did not count and does not count our transgressions against us. God knows everything. He knew everything about Peter, what Peter would do, how Peter would fail him, how Peter would struggle. As a matter of fact, he told Peter, you were acting like the devil. He knew everything about Peter, but he chose to use him anyway. So that's why I wanted to entitle this sermon, When You Fail, But God Still Uses You. Now let me give you this second point, because I've already told you God knows everything about you. The second point is this: God is using a whole lot of failures. People who are failures. See, you ain't so good. Don't sit up here and act all sanctimonious like you're not a failure. You hadn't failed sometime in life. I know you have a tendency to judge other people. I know you have a tendency to look at the sawdust in other folks' lives, but don't look at the big plank that's in yours. That's what Jesus says. You seem to look at the little in other people's lives and don't see the big stuff in your life. You seem to try to correct everybody else, but you don't correct yourself. You think that you are above, but just like me, you are a failure, you struggle, you have temptations, you disappoint people, you don't do everything you say you're going to do, and you got some hidden stuff in your life you don't want nobody to know about. I'm telling you, God uses failure. People who fail in life, God can still use them. Man, I don't have time to give you a list and resume and call off some of the people God used that you probably wouldn't use them at all. Let me give you one of them. You wouldn't use Noah because God knew he was a drunk, and the first thing he did when he got that boat on dry land was went out and planted a vineyard, grew him some grapes, made him some wine, and got slapped. Got so drunk that his sons had to come and cover him up. Got so drunk that he started dancing around naked. And his sons had to come and cover his. But God used him to build an ark. God can use failures. But then if we kind of move down and further in the Old Testament, we'll see Abraham. Now, Abraham was I'm going to use one of my mama's word. He was a lying son of a gun. I mean, you talking about Abraham. He could lie to save his own life, to save his own skin. Told the king that the Pharaoh, that Sarah was his sister. And it really was his wife. But the Lord used him anyway. Right. Because God uses people who have failures in their life, people who fall short, people who struggle. Let's go on down a little further. we're going to see that God's going to use David. Now, if you're talking about the quintessential guy who let his kingdom down, let God down, let himself down, let his subjects down, it's David. You know the greatest conflict in scriptures that people and theologians struggle with? All that David did, Andrea, he literally slept with another man's wife, got her pregnant, had him killed, and act like he had done nothing.
That's right. That's right.
But then you know what the Bible says? He was a man after God's own heart. God still used him, anointed him as king, even though God knew the kind of person that he was. God used failures. This church is full of failures. Now, they don't look like it this morning because they all sanctimonious, dressed up, looking holier than thou, halos on their head. But everybody in here, you have failed at something. Some of you have failed at marriage. Some of you have failed at relationships. Some of you have failed at parenting. Some of you has failed as children. Some of you have failed as employees. Some of you have failed as church members and auxiliary members of church. Church, but you are all failures. We've all failed, and let's all repeat after me. We've all failed. Nobody in here is perfect. You haven't done everything right. You don't live right. You don't do everything right. On your worst day, you struggle. On your best day, you struggle. So God uses failures. And then we're going to see in this particular narrative that in chapter 21, I'm going to give you this because, you know, I got to preach 2 more times today, so I'm trying not to get this shirt wet. Be calm in my presentation. Chapter 21 of John is interesting because this is the second time Jesus' help aids them in catching fish. Now there is the time his post-resurrection aid to help them catch fish after they caught nothing is in the text. But his pre-resurrection was when they let Jesus use their boat to preach. And they caught such a large amount of fish that they needed another boat to come help them. This is not the same as the first pre-resurrection event when Jesus helped them catch fish when they caught nothing. This is the second time. This is his post-resurrection. This is after his resurrection. Jesus had appeared to them 3 different times, and this was the third time he had appeared to them. And he was now on the banks of the seashore. This is important because I need to explain to you that after Jesus had resurrected, many of his disciples thought it was over. Jesus gave them instructions to go and wait, but Peter decided, along with 7 other disciples, we're going back fishing. Peter said, I'm going fishing. And they thought the movement that Jesus had started was over. They thought that Jesus now was about to ascend, that their work was over, and so they had given up. And Peter says, I'm going back to fishing. He took 7 disciples with him. Not all 12 went with Peter, but Peter decided, I'm going fishing. And Jesus now is on the seashore. Jesus has a fire. Jesus has a grill on top of that fire. Jesus has fish. And Jesus has bread. Jesus is cooking. They are fishing, but they ain't catching nothing. They had been fishing, and Jesus is sitting there with his fish, according to the text. You got to read the text carefully. Jesus is already fixing his breakfast. Jesus already has bread. He already has fish. And so he's cooking breakfast. He is preparing breakfast, and they are out there fishing. and they ain't catching nothing. And so we see in this particular text, we're going to see this event. Look at what it says. Afterwards, Jesus appeared to his disciples on the Sea of Galilee. And it happened this way. And Simon Peter, Thomas, named Didymus, Nathanael, and the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples were together. And then Peter says, I'm going out to fish. And they says, well, why are we going with you? Because they were going to go on and just move on. They thought this Jesus thing was over. Because Peter had fallen and denied Jesus, and he thought it was over, and they said, we might as well move on. But let me tell you, Jesus showed up. Look at verse 4. Jesus showed up. They thought it was over. But then Jesus shows up. That's a shouting point in the passage. Because let me tell you, my brothers and sisters, when you think it's over, Jesus show up. Boy, I feel like I want to get happy right now. Because some of y'all can testify there have been moments, situations, and circumstances in your life that have happened and transpired. You thought it was over until Jesus shows. Sometimes just tarry until it show up. He may not come when you want him, but he'll be there right on time. Look at verse 4. Early in the morning, Jesus stood. He'll show up when you think it's over. When you think he's moved on so you can move on. Peter said, I'm going back fishing. This Jesus thing is over. He talked about a church in Matthew chapter 16, but this stuff over. And we might as well go on back to fishing, go on back to our normal, regular lives. But in verse 4, Jesus. See, I'm trying to get you to shout. Because I need you to picture a personal circumstance or situation in your life that you thought it was over and other folks thought it was dead. But Jesus showed up. And when he showed up, things changed instantaneously. Verse 4 says, early that morning, Jesus stood on the seashores, but the disciples didn't realize that it was Jesus. And verse 5 says he called out to them. He didn't call them disciples, but he said friends. Have not you any fish? No, they answered. And he said, throw your nets on the right side of the boat and you will find some. You got to know when to shout. Because listen, they had been fishing. It's the second time. His pre-resurrection, when he encountered them after he used their boat, they had been fishing all night. They were cleaning the nets, mending their nets. And Jesus said, go lunch out into the deep and cast your nets. And when they did, they found a whole school of fish. And now they had been fishing. And Jesus sees them. And Jesus asked them a question, do you have any fish? And Jesus said, throw down your nets on the right side of the boat. They had been fishing on the left side. But Jesus said, throw them on the right side. He said, you'll find some. I can give you this. I ain't really got to put a lot of emphasis on. But I tell you, if you do what Jesus says, where Jesus told you to do it, you'll find some fish. And it could be that you ain't catching them because you ain't where he told you to be, and you ain't doing what he told you to do. That's why you ain't catching no fish, you're throwing your net on the wrong side. You keep throwing your net in the left side, and you know what insanity is defined as. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results, you're considered insane. Yeah. And so Jesus says to them, do something different. Boy, if I had time, I'd explain to you that sometimes you don't get the results you're really looking for because you won't do nothing different. You keep doing the same thing over and over again, getting the same results, but if you want a different result, you got to do something different. You got to put your aim and interest and effort in a different place, in a different space, a place where Jesus. And when they did this, still in verse 6, they were not able to haul up the net because of the large amount. Man, they went from catching nothing to now they done caught so much, a large amount. Well, I can tell you, and I can just stick a pin and tell you this, Jesus can turn things around. Where you was catching nothing, he can fill. He can. Well, see, I feel like shouting right now. But he can fill up your nets, especially when you do what he tell you to do and drop them where he tell you to drop them. He can fill them up. He can overflow. That Luke text says, pressed down, shaken together, running over shall men give unto you. The Lord can give you increase. And then John is right in verse 7. You know John is right because he doesn't call himself John, but he describes himself as the disciple to whom Jesus loved. John doesn't call his name first person, but he says the disciple to whom Jesus loved said to Peter, it's the Lord. John knew who. Listen, because something, boy, I'm going to make you shout. Ain't it the truth? John had this perspective, Sister Nivea, that this could only happen if the Lord. This looked like some Jesus stuff. Because John was familiar with some Jesus stuff. Because he knew that Jesus had done this miracle before. And John says, this looked like some Jesus stuff. And listen, I can tell you that I've seen some Jesus stuff happen before. And I know that this stuff happening now is some Jesus stuff. Because only Jesus could do this. And John, the one to whom Jesus loved, said, this look like some Jesus stuff. And as soon as Simon Peter heard him say this, he says, it is Jesus. This look like some stuff that only Jesus could do. And boy, let me tell you, only John captures the dramatic tension and the dramatic reaction of Peter. Because Peter has off his outer garments because he's fishing. But now he puts on his outer garment and he doesn't wait for the other disciples. Say what you want to say about Peter. Peter wasn't no punk. Say what you want about Peter. Peter had courage. Say what you want about Peter. Peter would take the initiative when others wouldn't. You remember it was Peter who got out of the boat when Jesus was up in the mountain, saw them struggling all night long in a storm. And Jesus came down from the mountain, walked on the water. Yeah. It was Peter that got out of the boat in a storm. And didn't even realize, because he got out of the boat in a storm, walking toward Jesus, didn't realize he was walking on water. Say what you want to about Peter. And here's Peter again. He doesn't wait on anybody. He doesn't follow the crowd. But Peter jumps out of the boat. All right. Look what the text says. He wrapped his outer garment around him, for he had taken it off. jumped into the water and started swimming toward Jesus. I'm going to give you this. One thing you can say about Peter, whenever he saw Jesus, he started going toward him. Whether it was in a storm or after this miracle, Peter had enough sense to start going toward Jesus. That's a good cautionary tale for us. No matter whether life brings storms or blessings, you need to always be going toward Jesus. In a storm, start swimming and walking toward Jesus. When he blesses you, keep on going toward Jesus. And verse 8 says, since they saw Peter jumping in water, swimming toward the seashore, the Bible says the other disciples followed him in the boat. Now, isn't that interesting? Peter was the only one got out of the boat, jumped in the water, started swimming, but they stayed in the boat. I could teach a lesson right here, but I don't have time. I can explain to you, some people want to stay in the comfort of the boat, but some people will risk it all just to get to Jesus. Some people will get to Jesus, but they won't put any effort in getting to Jesus. But Peter said, if it takes all of my energy, I'm going to get to him. And if don't nobody help me, I'm getting to Jesus. And so they stayed in the boat. And they needed to stay in the boat because the text says they was towing a net full of fish. And they wasn't far from the seashore, only 100 yards. And when they landed, they saw a fire of burning coals. And there was with it fish on it and some bread. Jesus was already cooking his breakfast, bread and fish. And then verse 10, Jesus says to them, bring me some of the fish. You have just caught. Boy, I could, man, I'm telling you. If I didn't have to preach 2 more times, I'd go and get happy. Now, isn't that interesting? Jesus already had fish and bread. Now, you do know he's a miracle worker. Now, he really didn't need their fish to feed them, because you do know he had just not too many months before that fed 5,000 with 2 fish and 5 loaves of bread. But Jesus didn't feed them with what he had, but he fed them with what he gave them. Man, I don't want to get political, but I can explain this to you. Sometimes the Lord want to bless you with what you work for. Not to be dependent upon some kind of welfare. Welfare is a transitional thing. It's to help you get you to a better place, not to keep you dependent on the government forever. My mama didn't live on welfare all her life, but she needed it for a time. But then the Lord started blessing her based on her own effort. I'm just trying to explain something to you. He could have fed them, and he could have made enough to feed with what he already had. But what Jesus says, bring some of what you just caught, and I'm going to cook it. So Peter climbed back. What is Peter? Look. Peter done swam already to the shore. And now Peter climbed back into the boat. And drags the nets ashore. Man, I could really preach something here, but I ain't got time again. Now, Peter had already gotten himself to the shore, safe, put in energy and effort to get himself. But then he goes back into the water to help them get the load back to the seashore. I really don't have time to explain to you that Peter was willing to help those who needed help, even though he had already helped himself. He didn't have to go back, but he chose to go back to help them get the boat and the net and the fish to the shore. John says this, that it was full of large fish and about 153. But then he puts this caveat in there. Because you know the first time Jesus done this miracle, the nets were so full they were about to break. They had to call for another boat. But this time, there was 153 fish in one net. And the net did not tear. Because let me tell you, when the Lord bless you with something, you're going to be able to keep it. He blessed them. And the first time it tore and broke under the pressure. But let me tell you something. When you get what God wants to give you and you get it right, it'll be a blessing to you. You got to be careful how you get the blessings of God. The problem with the prosperity gospel, they tell you all of these things you need to do, but I'm not worried about getting it. I'm worried about keeping it. Because listen, God blessed them, and they saw an overflow, 153 fish. Then Jesus said to them, come and have some breakfast. And none of the disciples dared to ask him, who are you? They knew it was the Lord. Jesus came, took the bread, gave it to them, did the same with the fish. This is the third time Jesus had appeared to his disciples after he was raised from the dead. Now, it don't sound like it's much in there, but it's a lot in there. But I don't have time to cover it. Now, this is one Jewish tradition. This is the difference between women sit down eating and men sit down and eat. Women sit down and eat, they talk the whole time they eat. But Jewish custom was when men sat down to eat, they didn't talk. They focused on eating, and they didn't talk until after they ate. That's why it's hard to get a piece of food in your mouth if you go out with your wife or your woman. Because she want to talk the whole time. But in this Jewish tradition, the men would eat first, and then they would talk. And that's exactly what the text says. When they had finished eating, verse 15. When they had finished eating, they all ate, consumed what Jesus had prepared, and they were now full. No talking during eating. I wanted to explain this to you and give you a practical application. Sometimes you need to just be quiet. Enjoy the moment. Just be quiet. Sometimes God speaks to us and we can reflect. And sometimes we talk so much when we ought to be quiet that we can't enjoy what we're supposed to be enjoying. Just to be in the presence of Jesus. To be eating a meal prepared by Jesus. To be in the presence of Jesus. And then the text says, when they had finished eating, Jesus said to Simon Peter, and then I'm closing because I'm going to just get two more things in the text. Jesus asked him the same question 3 times. And I don't have time because the sermon is not about the 3 questions because I want to hasten on. But Jesus asked him a simple question. Do you love me more than these? Now I need to answer that question. Who are these? Now 2 schools of thought on this. One is Jesus says, do you love me more than these? He's talking about the other 7 disciples or the other 6 disciples that are with Peter. Because Peter had already made the proclamation, don't none of them love you like I love you. And if all forsake you, I won't. And Jesus asked him the question, do you love me more than these? Now you said you did. You proclaimed that you did. You spoke up like you did. But do you love me more than these? And then Jesus, some schools of thought says that Jesus was talking about fishing. The material thing that Peter needed to make a living was fish. And Peter was a fisherman. And Jesus asked him the question, do you love me more than these? And Peter said to him, Lord, you know that I love you. And then Jesus says to him, feed my lamb. And then Jesus said again, and Jesus didn't call him Peter, he called him by his former name because Peter was acting like his old self. He said, Simon, son of John, do you love me? And he answered, yes, you know I love you. And Jesus says, then take care of my sheep. And the third time Jesus said to him, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me? And Peter was hurt. Jesus didn't care. Well, I need to tell you, Jesus cares nothing about your feelings. He cares for you, but he ain't into your feelings. If we could take our feelings out of church and serving God and serving others, we'd be a heck of a lot better Christians. Some of us get our feelings so hurt, we get so offended, and Peter was hurt because Jesus asked him a third time, do you love me? It's strange how Peter denied him 3 times, and Jesus just wanted to make sure that he was genuine, so he asked him the question 3 times. There might be no parallel difference or similarity between the 3 times he denied him and the 3 times he had to ask him the question. Now, you denied him 3 times, have 3 opportunities to say that you were one of my disciples, but now Jesus has to really come down hard and say, do you love me? And then Jesus says, feed my sheep. Verily I say unto you, he says, when you were younger, you dressed yourself and went where you wanted to go. But you're old now. And you will stretch out your hands and someone else will lead you and dress you and lead you where you don't want to go. Now I'm going to explain this to you and I'm going to my seat. He was saying, Peter, as a young man, you had control over your life. But now as an old man, I'm going to tell you how you're going to die. Because that's what Jesus was telling him. When he says, when you get older, you're going to stretch out your hands and they're going to lead you where you don't want to go, dress you the way you don't want to be dressed. Jesus is talking about the death of Peter. And that's exactly how Peter died. The historian Josephus and the other historians say that Peter was crucified on a cross. But Peter thought it was an insult to be crucified the same way Jesus was crucified upright. So Peter requested the cross be turned upside. He was led out and he was crucified. Verse 19 says this indicated the kind of death that Peter would die that would glorify God. He said to Peter, follow me. Now verse 20, now this is, see, this is what I like about Jesus. Jesus don't let you get in other folks' business. See, Jesus ain't like us. We love letting other folk get us in other folks' business. Because you remember when, in that John text where, in that Luke account, where Martha was in the kitchen cooking, she said to Jesus, now you need to tell Mary to come in here and help me. And Jesus said, look, Martha, you got a whole lot of issues that ain't got nothing to do with your sister coming in the kitchen helping you. Matter of fact, Jesus said you're troubled about a whole lot of other things. And Jesus says, I'm not going to get involved because what Mary's doing is a good thing and what you're doing is a good thing. But what I'm not finna do, I'm not finna attack Mary for you. when Mary ain't doing nothing wrong.
That's right.
Because look at what this text says. This is, and I'm closing. Peter turned and saw the disciple to whom Jesus loved was following them. And this was the one who leaned against Jesus at the Lord's Supper. And the Lord said, one of you are going to betray me. And Peter asked him, Lord, what about him? Boy, I don't have time to explain that to you. He's talking about John. See, Jesus had just dealt with Peter. Now, Peter want to know why Jesus ain't dealing with John. Now, Jesus, you done got on me. What about John? You done gave me the directions. What about John? Look, Jesus, you done straightened me out and got me back right. But what about John? See, that's where we are too. The Lord be dealing with us, but we want him to deal with other folk. But the Lord deal with them in his own time and in his own way. Worry about what the Lord trying to do in your life.
That's right.
Look at what I'm telling you. That's what the text says. When Peter saw him, he asked him, Lord, what about him? He's talking about John, the disciple whom Jesus loved. And Jesus answered, if I want him to remain alive until I return, what is that to you? Jesus had a smart mouth. So what you worry about John for? This is about you. That's what Jesus was saying. And he says, if I want John to remain alive until I return, what does that have to do with you? You, Peter, must follow me. And because of this, a rumor spread it among the believers that John would not die. But Jesus did not say that John would not die. But he says, if I want him to remain until I return, what that got to do with you? Boy, I'm finna get some of y'all out of my business. How the Lord dealing with me, what that got to do with you? Quit trying to put the Lord on me and worry about the Lord dealing with you. Quit trying to use God as an attack dog to get me. What you going through ain't got nothing to do with me. But we love to seek God on other folk because we think other folk getting away with what the Lord won't let us get away with. And the Lord said, how I'm going to deal with John and what I'm going to do with John ain't got nothing to do with you. Let me give you some historical context. The disciples, most of them died a martyr's death, but not John. John did not die the way they died. As a matter of fact, John was banished to the Isle of Patmos. And he died on the Isle of Patmos because the Lord wasn't through with him yet. Yeah. I need to tell you this, and I'm closing. The Lord deals with us all differently. Sometimes he deals with us immediately, that's you. And sometimes other people who are doing the same thing in the same situation, he deals with them later. But however he deals with them later or now ain't got nothing to do with you. See, the problem is you so worried about what God doing in somebody else's life till you can't see what he's trying to do in your life. He had to remind Peter, you follow me. That's what I told you to do. Quit worrying about what I didn't do and what I hadn't told or what I am telling John. What does what I'm going to do with John have to do with always in somebody else's business? Then I'm closing because this kind of shuts up the sermon. And it's a good lesson now because see, y'all be looking at other folk. You think the Lord ought to be done got me by now, don't you? You said that preacher ain't right. Robert Simmons ain't right. The Lord ought to get him. And you're saying that because he getting you. You climbing up the rough side of the mountain, you in the valley, life seems hard and difficult, and you think that we doing the same thing. That's what you assume, and since the Lord is dealing with you because you doing what you think I'm doing, and the Lord dealing with you. And see, the thing about God is he's long suffering. He gives some people grace, and then some people he calls them in. And it deals with people at different times doing the same thing. But I need to tell you, justice denied ain't justice. Justice delayed ain't justice denied. Just because he don't get you today don't mean he ain't going to get you. Just because he hadn't tracked you down today don't mean. You know, I love that Nat Geo show, Life Below Zero. Some of y'all don't watch that stuff. Life Below Zero is where they live out in Alaska in the wilderness, and it'd be so cold out there, and they have to hunt. They live a subsistence life. They have to live off of the land. And in one episode, they was out moose hunting, and the winter was closing in. They were getting cold, and they was out hunting moose. And you know you got to shoot a moose in the heart and the head for him to die. But on this episode, they shot him in the hind quarter, and so they thought the hunt was over. But then the guy who was hunting with him said, "Listen, we ain't gonna go back to the camp. We just gonna keep on. We're gonna keep on looking." And he said, "But we didn't shoot him and kill him." He said, "Don't matter. He ain't gonna live that long. All we got to do is follow the blood trail." And eventually they followed the blood trail, and eventually the moose bled out, and there he lay dead. But just because he didn't die when they shot him don't mean that he didn't die. And he wasn't going to die. Let me tell you, some folks might get by, but they ain't going to get away. Because God got his own timetable. But I got to shout because of this. I told you last week I get excited talking about that heaven talk. But let me tell you what I get happy about on the flip side of that. I get happy about that mercy and long suffering of God, because God is merciful. He'll give you more time than you deserve. He'll look beyond all of your faults. And he'll bless you in spite of. But then the Lord is long suffering. The Lord is long suffering, TJ. He'll let you stay out there a long time. And he'll wait for you to come back home. Look at the prodigal son. In Luke 16, he left home and he stayed out there a long time. And he wasted all that he had. But his father went on the front porch, looked into their eyes every day, looking for his son to come home. The days went by, went home disappointed, went to bed, woke up the next morning with the same expectation, looking over the horizon, waiting for his son to come home. Went back in the house, went to bed, prayed before he went to bed, prayed for his son, hoping that his son come back, never went looking for his son, woke up. Next moment, stood on the horizon, looking for his son to come home. And some mornings he would look and see a shadow in the horizon, walking in the dust, a person alone, and he would see him coming closer, and he would get enthused and happy. But when he looked, as he got closer, it wasn't his son. Went home, went to bed, went disappointed. Got up the next morning, looked, went, gazing into the horizon, the sun, the dust, the shadowy body, ragged sun, getting closer. Gets closer, so close that he recognizes his son because he knows his son's walk. He knows how his son swaggers from side to side. He grew up in his father's house. He knew it was his son. He didn't wait for his son to come running to him, but he ran to his son. Because he'd been waiting for his son to come home. That's the long-suffering part. He was long-suffering. He just waited. Didn't go looking, just waited. The merciful part was when his son came home, he said, get him some new clothes. Kill the fattest calf.
Yeah.
Put a ring on his finger.
Yeah.
And don't make him a servant because he's still my son. And threw a party for him because that's the merciful side. I get happy about that long-suffering and merciful side of God. God is loving. But more than that, God is patient. God is long-suffering. And God been waiting on some of y'all. He's still waiting. He ain't going to give up on you. You might fail. You might struggle, but God, He ain't going to give up on you. You might give up on love, but God ain't going to give up on you. Because He's long-suffering. Then I don't have time to explain Acts chapter 2. Peter gets up and preaches the greatest sermon that's ever been preached that ignites the manifestation of the church because God ain't through with you yet. God is still at work. And God can still use you. I don't care who you are in here this morning. You can't fall low enough for God not to pick you up. You can't go out far enough that God can't reach and bring you back home. Use me, Lord, in thy service. Use me, Lord. I am the clay. Thou art the potter. Use me. Use me, Lord. And I'm telling you, God ain't finished using some of y'all. People might write you off. You might write yourself off. But God still wants to use you. Even though you fail, even though you struggle, even though you have disappointments in life, God still wants to use you. Every head bowed and every eye closed. Don't let your failures make you think God cannot use you. I tell you, the thief on the cross thought it was over and said, we need to get down from here if our luck is going to change. But the other thief says, I ain't worried about getting down from here. I'm worried about getting up yonder. And so he said to Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And that was the long suffering and the mercy of God. Because it's never too late as long as the blood is still running warm in your veins. You have a chance today, no matter what people might say, your failures might say, your mistakes, setbacks, your mess-ups, your hookups, your slip-ups. God can still use you if you'll make yourself available to Him. If you're here today and you don't know Jesus Christ, you can know Him as your personal Savior. If you're here today and you want to be saved, you can come. If you're here today and you want to know